welcome to another episode of You First. That's right. It's all about you, and you. You know, this is your safe space. And I am your host, Shawanna Kennedy, where we talk about all things self-care, mental well-being, personal empowerment, and development. In this space, I often get the opportunity to speak with some amazing individuals. And, we love our experts, right? We love our doctors. And then there is actually a psychotherapist in the building. She is in the house, and I cannot wait to dive into our conversation today to help us all. She is a truth teller. She is a healer, and she is a builder of boundaries. This young lady has over 2 decades in mental health counseling. I'm excited because having the opportunity to watch her work, seeing her online, knowing that she works with high achieving women to help them do what we talk about here, make themselves a priority in their life, right? So that we can go out and we can be about the things that we know that we have been called and even anointed to do. If you don't already know, you already know I'm Shawanna Kennedy. And yes, I love our creator. So that is one thing that you will oftentimes hear me speak about, because I do know it is because of him that we get to do some of the things that we get to do. And every now and then, God has equipped some special individuals to get the education and the tools that they need to help us to manage this thing called life. And that is in the person of none other than Miss Ashlee Washington. Won't you help me welcome her to the platform? Yes, welcome, Ashlee.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited that you paused for the cause for us to have this conversation. And I know one of the things that you really pride yourself on is talking about over-functioning. Now, I have to ask, before we even dive into all of the questions, why mental health? Of all of the things that you could have said when you was a little girl and I wanted to grow up and I wanted to do a number of things, what made you even want to go into mental health?
So funny and ironic, I played sports growing up. So I actually wanted to be an athletic trainer starting out. That was my first love, was just working in sports. I actually went to college and wanted to be a trainer, and the college I chose, Grand Blanc State University, did not have an athletic trainer degree. So the closest thing was for me to do recreational therapy and to do what they call an internship for alternative certification, alternative licensure. And I did that, was in school, being a student trainer, traveling with all the sports. And I just wanted to be in my dorm room and sleeping in my bed because we traveled so much. And so I think we had a class maybe my sophomore year that where we had to kind of go get some, wasn't an internship. What word would I use? We had to go shadow some people, right? And so I shadowed in mental health, and I was like, oh, I like this. This is something, right? I was like, I'm gonna do something in mental health. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna go ahead and kind of follow this way. But if I really go back to being a child, I would say just being who I am, it just makes sense. I'm the first granddaughter, the first daughter, the first cousin. I'm the oldest, everything. So, I had to be responsible for, the cousins, the siblings, that type of thing. So I was a boring, I guess you could say boring helper, or just kind of thrown into that role of being a helper and being a fixer, just being the oldest sibling and oldest cousin, oldest grandchild, all of those things. So I would probably say I was just born to be in a helping field. And then just my family in general, we're all helpers. Most people work in some type of healthcare related field or education. So it was just,
it's in the DNA. It's partially
it's just part of my DNA at the end of the day. Really.
Yeah. I really do get that, because when you think about one of the things that I know I innately do is I'm a natural born encourager, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and some people saying, hey, we got a therapist in the house today. It could be, do you think that some of that comes from people who may have not gone for higher education in the field, do you think those things lean into maybe a lack of something that they may not have received? Because sometimes I've heard it said that you usually become what you might have needed. Do you believe that to be true? Or like you said, some of it is just really is a part of our DNA? Because I know that I love to empower individuals. I love to encourage individuals to actually be themselves. Hence, hello, right?
I can see that, right? Because as I said, the things that I said with pride, there's also a part of me that kind of resents it at times, right? So, being that oldest, bringing your younger siblings around to hang out with your friends, like go get your own friends, right? Things like that, sometimes putting your own feelings aside because, I don't want to see my little sister and my little brother cry. So I'm going to give them, that extra piece of candy or that thing. So, just being the one that you have to lean on. And then, coming from the type of family I came from, we were kind of like perfectionists because you weren't allowed to have bad grades and things like that. And we just, was very regimented. And, my mom, she's a sweet lady, but she also could be a drill sergeant, right? So I can see that because being able to do what I do, I can relate to a lot of the women I talk to because I am a perfectionist. I am an overachiever. I am an overfunctioner. I do all of those things. And, I'm going to say I did all those things because I'm recovering. And so I think this something that also kind of makes me successful in this field is that I'm not just, the therapist, I'm the client too.
Yeah. No, I get it. That is, hey, hence, of course, like I said, I had to be the person to not only create the movement, but I even got shirts to match, right? It's becoming the thing that I know that at a time, and I don't want to say a late bloomer, where, like you said, I'm not the oldest, I'm the second oldest, but when people kind of lean on you, it really does, like you said, I love how you just said that you've been the patient and also a person that people have to come to get help. So that actually does make you better at your job. I like that. So what made you even want to go in this particular area when we think about overfunctioning? When you think about women, because I know that's your primary focus is women, how do we not even realize it for some of us, right? Because some people they're just doing what they're doing and they believe this is what they do. How do you see them or help them to even recognize that? Do you realize?
So I'm a kind of a storyteller. So it kind of goes honestly back to when I was getting my license, right? I didn't know what I was going to focus on. I just knew that I wanted to do therapy because I think we start off, I'm a recreational therapist as well. And so I was doing recreation therapy, running a recreation therapy company. But I was like, okay, you're going to be 40 in a few years. What's next? And I had always said I wanted to be a psychotherapist. And so back in, I think age 35 or so, something like that, I decided I was going to go for it. So I got back into grad school, got a second master's degree in social work. And when I was working on my clinical license, they're like, okay, so what do you want to focus on? What's your modality? What type of therapist you want to be? I'm like, girl, a therapist, to my supervisor. And, but naturally, because I guess that role that we keep talking about, I'm a problem solver. And so she was talking, it's like, what about solution focused? Mm-hmm. And then I was like, that's cool. And I went and I was like, I really like that. But then George Floyd died. And that did something, that broke something in me, right? I was just tired of seeing my people, and it was just trauma porn, right? I can't keep turning on the TV and seeing another person who looks like me just being extinguished, like right before my eyes, and they're acting like he wasn't a person. And then Alton Sterling down in Baton Rouge, just, of a loose cigarette. And I got the opportunity to get trained in EMDR, and that's a trauma-based therapy. Mm-hmm. And I took the opportunity to get trained in that, and oh my gosh, it was life-changing. just even my breakthrough in being trained, you have to kind of be the client. And I was like, oh, this is life changing.
What was the biggest thing that you learned going through that about yourself?
That I had a lot of trauma built in the things that I took pride in. And so I know I'm getting all long with it, but that's circle back to answer your question.
No. I want to know when you went through that training. Yes. It's kind of like when we study, we have to do some self work, some self reflection, and like you said, going through even that specific training, it caused you to have to go on the inside. So what was that? You said that biggest discovery, and then how did you then work through that to say, like you had that aha while learning this?
So that biggest discovery is just that we have a lot of hurt that a lot of times that we don't realize that we're carrying. There's this book that's called The Body Keeps the Score. And so we store that trauma in us, we're a totality of all of the things that's happened. So even just the things that I took pride in that made me strong, they were also my weaknesses, right? And just going through that training, they told me to pick something easy because you don't want to cry in front of all these strangers, right? You go through this training. And so I picked something that I thought was easy because I knew exactly the day it happened, right? It wasn't some random, let's connect the dots here things, right? It was something specific. And I was like, okay, I want to do that because I don't want that to keep, popping up. And so I go through and I'm like, okay, this is the thing and this is what happened and let's do the therapy. And I started lying because I was like, I wasted my money taking this training. This don't work. This don't work, right? And I'm going through the motions and it's not working. And we get to the end, but I'm lying because I'm like, I'm gonna put me on blast. And the lady read me. She read me my rights. She was like, hey, she didn't call me a liar, but she knew I was, right? And she called me out. She called me out and she asked me like what happened immediately following the incident that I was talking about. And I was like, I just walked down, whatever. And then she was like, well, what happened then? And I got laughed at, right? After this event, never even thought about it. Incident. And she's like, well, why are you upset somebody laughed at you? I said, well, it made me feel stupid. Mm-hmm. And I said embarrassed first. And she's like, well, it was funny. It was a joke. And I was like, well, no, it made me feel stupid. And there were moments in my life I had felt stupid, right? And in that moment, to me, I didn't even know it was so traumatizing because what had happened, it had cemented that I was stupid. That was the first time that it was validated, right? That's the way my body felt it.
Right.
And that's how my mind stored it. So going through that, I was like, oh my gosh, because what it was so trivial, at least I thought was so trivial. And it was just like, and then I started thinking about, that little voice in our heads that say, you stupid, you're not good enough, you could have done better, you don't deserve this. I started realizing I talked to myself a whole lot more than I like to admit back then, like that. And that was my breakthrough. And then I was like, I got to bring this to other Black people, other Black women, because we wear that cape as a badge of honor. We wear that. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a straight A student. We collect degrees like nobody's business. We collect certifications. I got about 15,000 letters after my name, right? Because I'm collecting these things because society, life, family has told us that we need these things to be valid, but we also need to shrink because we can't get too high and we can't get too mighty. And in that moment, that's what it showed me. Like I was crazy, just the thoughts that was just coming through my head, going through my head. And I was like, I got to bring this to my people. We deserve this. We deserve this healing. So long-winded, long story long.
No, I love that you shared that because I'm pretty sure someone that is listening, they have something in their lives that they can look back on where it was a trigger that triggered the trauma. And like you said, the book, because I've heard that book before. Like it does keep score, and sometimes we don't realize that there was even any score being kept somewhere until we run into it, until we see it, until we, hey, you're the therapist, until we could even smell something that could put us back at a time in our life where we're wondering, where did this come from? And with you having the opportunity to work with women, what is one of the number one questions that they all seem, because I know it's a number of things, life issues and all of the things. What is one of the number one things that they come to you with, and this is one of their top issues that they have?
I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. That's kind of the number one thing that I get. Either I'm not good enough or I deserve the bad things that have happened to me because I'm not good enough.
How do you, if someone is actually that is looking and listening right now, I want you to actually speak to a woman, even a man that could be watching this episode, and just talk to them if that's something that they've ever said to themselves. Talk to them for a minute for me.
So the biggest thing is that it's not your fault. You know, bad things happen to good people. You didn't ask for these things to happen to you, but you're a survivor. So now that you're a survivor, we can get down to some healing. We can process it. We can work through it so that we can change those thought processes, so that we can change how we look at ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, how we show up for ourselves in the world. I want you to be able to show up for yourself the way you show up for everyone else. I want you to be able to come into therapy or go into therapy and take your cape off and just be for a moment. Be the person that you were meant to be before the world told you you're not good enough, before the world told you you do too much, before the world told you you talk too loud, before the world told you your skin was too dark, before the world told you you're not attractive, before the world told you anything negative. I want you not to shrink. I want you to be your authentic self. I want you to be whatever it is you want to be. And like Carmen said, I want you to just be.
I love that. And I have to ask, when we think about those things, how do you help people deal with guilt? The people that struggle with that guilt that goes along with even some of that are working through that. Then, hey, we're talking about you first. We're talking about making yourself a priority. We're talking about, I say self first, right? I'm self first and over here. And when people then begin to feel guilty for things, saying, now I know I need to be setting some type of boundary. How do you help them, those that struggle with that guilt?
So the first thing we do is I guess you could say, I want to back up a little bit. EMDR is like a process, right? It's an 8-step process type of a therapy, right? So we go through different stages. So and I use it pretty much for all of my clients. We may not do complete EMDR, but we do some kind of version of things that we've taken from that. So the first thing is, we just do an extensive, let's just sit here and talk. Tell me all of the things about you. Tell me all the things that, bother you, what's going on in your life, and I'm looking for patterns and things of that nature, right? Once we kind of figure that out, then we can kind of start tackling that guilt, because we go down the process. We get to like kind of that root feeling, and we're like, if you're guilt, why are you feeling guilty? Right? So it goes back to, I don't deserve things, or I was put in a place where that's the only thing I'm worth. That's my only worth is attached to these things. Once we get to that part and start kind of desensitizing those feelings around that, and then just reprocessing, your body immediately will let it go. And then we can then start working with your mind about showing that you're just as important as everything else in your life. You deserve all of the things that you're giving to other people, and you are enough, and then that it's just crazy how the thought process change once you get down to like what they're feeling, So the guilt just kind of goes when you realize that they're I'm not guilty. I just didn't realize that I deserved love, or I deserved care, or I deserved to buy me a new car, or I deserved to go on vacation. I deserved to get flued out. All of those things, right? Once you realize that you deserve, the rest of it just starts to come kind of, it's just like, it just falls into place.
Yeah, it's without, of course, disclosing too much information. What is the average age of, when we think about women, the average age where you're like between a certain age is where you really see all of this? Because I know when I really went through my major, self-discovery journey and my self-firsting, my discovery, me being more aware of who I am and what I actually needed. I wasn't a kid, right? I was older. And what is the average age? Because when we think about people that could be looking and listening right now, it's kind of like things or signs that they may even need to look at to say, you don't realize that you're doing this. Not just because, we're still going to discuss the over functioning, but before you even realize that you're over functioning, it's some of these other things that get us to this point where we don't even realize we're just walking through life.
So I'm starting to see that probably in my early 40s. I'm starting to get them, but really people who are like going from their early 40s headed towards the mid 40s to about the mid 50s. They're starting to realize, and I'm gonna say my mid 50-year-olds, they're starting to feel like they there's a possibility they have more life behind them than they have in front of them. And so they're like, I did all of these things and all I got is some letters behind my name. What else is there to life? Or my 40-year-olds, they're millennials. And so I want everybody out there to stop calling Generation Z and Generation Alpha millennials. We millennials, we're in our 40s now. We're not outside playing anymore. We growing up, we grown, we got mortgages. So the millennials, we old, okay? But outside of that joke there, the early 40s are starting to realize they tricked us. They tricked us because they said, go to school, get the degrees, you'll buy a house, you'll do this. And the younger millennials, they can't buy a house. They're not climbing the ladder because the baby boomers, they won't retire because they can't. Right? Because the world has changed so much. The baby boomers can't retire. Gen X is too stubborn to change their ways. Gen X is stubborn. But Gen X some G's, right? But they're stubborn and the boomers won't go home. And so the millennials, they just feel like they got gypped, they got tricked. They got settled with all this student debt and all this thing. And they're just like, what do I do with this? Mm-hmm. Those early 40s, mid 40s, and there's a little micro generation of Zennials, and that's what I call myself, a Zennial too. When Gen X was going into millennials, because we played outside, but then we had a computer by the time we started coming of age. So the Zennials, we really feel cheated because our whole life is trauma. I sit there and I tell them about all of the things that we lived through, and they're like, wait, we were always at war and somebody was always blowing something up, or something was going to be blown up. So they come in and they just realize it's got to be more.
Yeah.
Be more to life.
Yeah, no, I can agree. And hey, for the record, I don't know what's the name for Gen Xers that actually kind of still vibe with Gen Z. Because I'm an X over here. I'm an X over here, y'all. I'm an X over here. And I love being an X, but I do believe because of work that I've done for myself, it does allow me to be sympathetic and have empathy for those who they haven't worked through some things. They haven't had a conversation with Ashlee, right? They haven't done some things to help push them cross the line into, what is it, when you think about identity and reinventing ourselves. and and all of those things, when we think about what that looks like, because we are supposed to live a life of more abundance. And like you said, one of the things you did mention, which was so true, because of what's happening in the current state of society in the world, you talking about they didn't want to retire 5 years ago. Now it's where they can't retire. Like you said, they can't because they've actually just moved the freaking needle. The needle has been moved again, right? So it's like, what are we to do? I love this conversation because it's needed. And that's part of the problem too, because what is the whole thing? I know you get it all the time, or you've heard it all the time too, about, what happens here is stay here, right? Mm-hmm. But it's where we do have to have these open dialogues about what this really look like, what this really feel like, because, look, we got on a little makeup today because of being on here, but it's like, what happens when the braids is out, wig is off, and then we're looking at even our friends, our sisters, right? Our mothers, right? And it's like, what is this, and how can we continue to help a sister, right? They be saying, help a brother, help a sister, where they truly can see that it's coming from a good place, because that's the thing too. Some people, they believe that you're trying to take something away from them instead of really get something to them, because you can say all day long, you need to go talk to somebody, right? I've had those conversations because I'm glad that it's not this big secret anymore. I'm so excited that it's so many more of us, people of color, that really do pick up a phone. And I know several people that say, yes, I have a therapist, I have a counselor, I do those things. So it's nice to know and to hear that it's being normalized now for people to get the help that they need. And I say it too. I don't really like to take a lot of medicine, but heck, if you need those things, I'll be the first to say, take your medicine to get the help that you need to make yourself a priority, to put you back on the to-do list of your own life, because you already know, if you don't, hey, it's not a cliche. If we really don't take care of ourselves, then what else is there? Why are we here? What are we doing? So I love what is being discussed today. I do want to get more into the over-functioning and what that looks like, because we haven't even touched about motherhood. We haven't talked about the C-suiter, those individuals that really be doing the most, right? That I'll say it, they be doing the most. And like you said, all of the achievements, and then you look back over your life and you got a nice, pretty wall, right? And that's one of the things too. And I noticed, even looking behind you, I don't see that with all of the things that you have, you don't. And that was one of the things for me. And I said, I didn't want all of that. I didn't want you to have to do it. I want you to see me. I want you to see me. I want you to get to know me. And so right before we even get out of here, because y'all already know she's diving deep. So that means we definitely going to have to, make her stick around so we can do a part 2. I want to know, as we get ready to wrap up, what is the one thing that you will help a person when you think about all of the things that have been discussed so far, so that they can begin to potentially even do something today? I say do something today that your future self will thank you for. What can you leave them with today?
Say something kind to yourself. Say something kind. Talk nicer to yourself. That's kind of what I'm doing right now, is practicing being kinder to myself. Like I said, I'm the client and the therapist. I'm a recovering overachiever. I always got to be doing something. I always got 10 irons in the fire at one time. So just be kind. Say something nice. If you like your hair today, say, girl, your hair look good. God, man, this lineup looking good, Something nice. Say something nice. Do something nice for yourself. It starts there.
I love that. It seems so simple, but yet it can feel so hard for some people. So I want y'all to make sure that y'all definitely staying tuned in, locked in. This young lady, she is reachable on all social media platforms. I'm going to make sure that you're going to have her information in the bottom. So make sure you follow Miss Ashlee and tell her where you saw us at. But you already know we've been ready to wrap this up, because we got to continue this conversation, because I got a few more juicy questions that I actually want to pull out of her today. So tell the people goodbye, Ashlee. We're going to see them again soon. So remember, do something today that your future self will thank you for. Be sure to like and subscribe and share this with someone that you know that needs to be a part of the You First community, because what? We're the greater because you are here and you support us, and we thank you. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now. This episode is brought to you by Kennedy Media and Entertainment, your premier video productions and digital visibility partner. Working with business owners just like you to be seen, heard, and paid by elevating your brand with high-impact video content, online visibility strategies, and expert social media management. Ready to stand out in your industry, on and off camera? Contact Kennedy Media today, and let's turn your message into a movement. Because visibility isn't optional, it's essential. Contact KennedyMediaLLC.com, KennedyMediaLLC.com, and let's boost your brand's visibility. It's time for you to be seen, heard, and known for your expertise. Contact us today.